I'd been married to William Bennett for 5 years. And tonight, I was supposed to be delivering his jacket because he'd left it at the house again. The house he rarely slept in. The house our daughter, Lily, waited for him to come home to. But I'd stopped at the door because I recognized Stephanie Reed's laugh. That particular trill, high and practiced, like she perfected it in front of a mirror. I'd been hearing it for 12 years. She's literally the world's biggest doormat. William's voice drifted through the crack in the door. I could tell Claire I'm leaving her tomorrow, and she'd still pack my bags and ask if I wanted a sandwich for the road. More laughter. My stomach clenched. "Come on, man, that's cold," someone said. Thomas, probably. William's brother, who'd never liked me. "Is it cold if it's true?" William asked, and I could hear the shrug in his voice. "Face it, she's not going anywhere. She never does. That's the whole point of marrying someone like Claire Foster. She's reliable, predictable. She'll never embarrass me by making a scene." "I don't know, Will. She seems different lately," another voice chimed in. More distant, like she's checked out or something. "Checked out?" William laughed. "Please, Claire doesn't know how to check out. She's been in love with me since we were 15 years old. She'd follow me to the ends of the earth and back. That's just who she is. That's who she's always been." My hand finally found the door handle. I pushed it open. The room went quiet almost instantly. 6 faces turned toward me, a mix of shock and embarrassment rippling through the group like a physical wave. Stephanie was perched on William's lap. Of course she was, her perfect red dress riding up just enough to be inappropriate. Her smile faltered for half a second before snapping back into place. "Claire, we didn't hear you coming," she said, not moving from her perch, not even pretending to care how this looked. "I was just telling William how well he did on that business deal. He's been working so hard." I looked at my husband of 5 years, the father of my 4-year-old daughter. He didn't flinch. He didn't push Stephanie off. He just looked at me with that vaguely annoyed expression I'd grown so accustomed to, the one that said, "Why are you here and what do you want?" "I brought your jacket," I said, holding it out like an offering. "You left it at the house." The room was silent. Too silent. No one knew what to say. Stephanie took the jacket from me before William could, her fingers brushing mine in a way that was deliberately condescending. "Oh, that's so sweet of you, Claire. He's always forgetting things, isn't he? That's why he needs me around, to keep him organized." "I'll take that," I said, my voice flat. I pulled the jacket from her hands and held it out to William. He didn't take it. "Just leave it on the chair," he said. "We're about to head out anyway." I didn't move. "Actually," I said, and my voice sounded strange to my own ears. "Calm. Too calm. I need to tell you something." "Is this really the time?" William's jaw tightened. "Claire, we have guests." "I'm leaving you." The words dropped into the room like stones into still water. Stephanie's mouth opened, closed, opened again. For the first time in years, William's face showed something other than indifference. Confusion. Maybe even a flicker of something that looked like panic, though I knew better than to hope for that. "Excuse me?" He pushed Stephanie off his lap, and she stumbled slightly in her heels, looking offended. "What did you just say?" "I'm leaving you," I repeated, and I realized I was smiling, not a bitter smile or a sad smile, just a smile to release. "Actually, that's not quite accurate. I've already left. I filed the paperwork 3 weeks ago. You should be getting served any day now." "You're joking." He actually laughed, though it came out strained. "Claire, you've threatened to leave me a dozen times. You ran back to your father's estate twice. You can't." "I'm not joking, William." I reached into my purse and pulled out the envelope I'd been carrying for 6 months. The envelope that contained copies of every transaction, every evidence of infidelity, every text message I'd screenshot over 3 years of patient observation. "I want a divorce," I said, "and I want full custody of Lily. You can't take my daughter." "I already have." I pulled out my phone and showed him the text I'd sent my lawyer an hour ago. "She's with my mother right now. That I picked her up from school this morning while you were still asleep. You didn't even notice she was gone, did you? You didn't notice that your wife was gone. Either did I moved the last of my things out yesterday." The silence stretched. Stephanie finally found her voice. "Claire, don't you think you're being dramatic? William and I were just..." "I know exactly what you are, Stephanie." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I saw something like fear in her eyes. "You've been sleeping with my husband for years," I said. "I know about the apartment in Manhattan that I know about the jewelry he bought you last Christmas. I know about the pregnancy you miscarried 2 years ago, the one you told him was mine, to guilt him into staying." William's face went white. "How do you?" "I've known for 3 years, William." The sound of a glass shattering broke the moment. One of his business partners had dropped his drink in shock. I didn't care. 3 years, William repeated. "That's impossible. You would have said something. You would have." "I was waiting," I said. "Waiting for you to prove me wrong. Waiting for you to choose me. Waiting for you to be the man I thought you were." I laughed, and it came out hollow and broken. "But you never did. You know what I realized, William? You didn't love me, and you didn't love Stephanie either. You loved what she represented. Freedom, recklessness. An escape from the responsibility you never wanted." I turned to leave. "Claire, wait." William grabbed my arm. I looked down at his hand, that hand I'd held through chemo when his sister was sick, that hand I'd clung to during labor, that hand I'd kissed 1,000 times before he ever knew it was a kiss I'd been dreaming of since I was 15 years old. "Don't touch me," I said. "You lost that right 3 years ago when you told Stephanie, in front of half the city, that our marriage was a business arrangement." William's eyes widened. "You were there?" "Of course I was there. I'm always there, William. I'm the one who cleans up your messes. I'm the one who lies to the press. I'm the one who makes sure Lily doesn't know her father would rather spend time with another woman than read her a bedtime story." Stephanie stepped forward, her eyes glistening with what I assumed were fake tears. Claire, I know this is hard, but William and I, we love each other. We've always loved each other. You knew that when you married him, you knew. Knew what? That you'd been sleeping together before we were married? That you were the reason William proposed in the first place. The color drained from Stephanie's face. I laughed again, this time with real satisfaction. Oh, don't look so surprised. Steph, did I know all about the bet? And I know about the I bet Claire Foster will marry you if you ask conversation. Did I know that this entire marriage was a joke to you both? That's fine that I've had 3 years to make peace with that. I opened my phone again and pulled up the audio recording I'd made of our conversation at that party 2 years ago. The one where William and Stephanie had laughed about the bet, about how pathetic I was, about how I'd never know the truth. I hit play. William's voice echoed through the booth. She's so desperate for love, she'd probably thank me for the humiliation. That's what makes it so easy. She thinks she's so smart, but she doesn't see anything. Stephanie's voice. Doesn't she ever wonder why you're never home? William. She's too busy being a good little wife. It's honestly pathetic. Like I said, I pocketed my phone. I've known for 3 years. I just needed the right moment. And tonight felt like the perfect opportunity to tell you everything. I walked out of that club like a queen leaving her kingdom. The cold night air hit my face, and for the first time in 5 years, I could breathe that I could actually breathe. I didn't stop walking until I reached the parking lot, my heels clicking against the concrete like a countdown to freedom. I didn't look back. I didn't have to. Because I knew exactly what was happening behind me. William was panicking. Stephanie was crying. His business partners were exchanging awkward glances, unsure whether to follow or flee. Let them panic. Let them wonder. They didn't know what I had prepared. They didn't know about the private investigator I'd hired, the one who documented every night William spent in the Manhattan apartment. They didn't know about the forensic accountant who traced the money William had siphoned from our joint accounts to fund Stephanie's lifestyle. They didn't know about the recordings I'd saved, every voicemail, every text message, every incriminating conversation I'd collected over 1,092 days. They didn't know about my mother. They didn't know about the assets she'd transferred to a trust in Lily's name the day I told her what was happening. They didn't know about the offer I'd received from a private equity firm, the one that would make me independently wealthy in ways William couldn't even comprehend. They didn't know that I'd been preparing this moment for 3 years. And they certainly didn't know that my husband, my useless, arrogant husband, was about to lose everything. I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer, Helen. It's done, I said. Send the papers tomorrow morning. And Helen, make sure it's in the financial section. I want everyone to see. I climbed into my car and started the engine. The club's neon sign flickered behind me, a false promise of glamour I was no longer interested in. But I would tell you everything. The truth about my marriage, the truth about my daughter, the truth about the night I decided to stop being the perfect wife. And the truth about what happened when I realized that in the end, the biggest lie of my life was believing I couldn't survive without him. Because they didn't know what I already knew. I had been planning my escape for 3 years. And I was just getting started. That wasn't the beginning, though. That night in the club was the ending. The real story started 12 years ago, in a garden on a warm summer evening when I was 23 years old and still believed in happy endings. My family's estate was in the Hamptons, a sprawling property that had been in the Foster family for 4 generations. I'd grown up there, in the kind of opulence that made people uncomfortable. We weren't old money the way the Bennetts were. My mother made her fortune in tech, and my father had been a psychiatrist with an unorthodox approach to therapy. They'd married young, built an empire together, and then had me, their only child. When my mother was 43, I was a surprise, a miracle. I was also, apparently, a burden. My mother never said that, of course, but I could see it in the way she deferred to William. Always deferring to William, accommodating to William. She'd grown up in poverty, and even decades of wealth couldn't erase the fear that she might lose it all. When her only daughter married a man from a family like the Bennetts, a family whose fortune predated the Civil War, a family with business connections in every major city in America, it was validation. It was proof that she'd made it. I didn't understand that then. I was too young, too stupid, too blind to realize that the fairy tale I was living in had been built by people who saw marriage as transaction, love as leverage, and people as nothing more than pieces on a chessboard. William Bennett was beautiful. That was the first thing anyone noticed about him. He had that particular kind of beauty that came from generations of good genetics and better breeding, tall, lean, with aristocratic features and eyes the color of gray November skies. His jaw could have been carved by a sculptor, and when he smiled, it was like watching the sun break through clouds. I'd loved him since I was 15. I remember the exact moment I fell in love with him. It was a gala at the Bennett estate, a summer charity event that my mother had dragged me to against my will. I was awkward and painfully shy, hiding in corners, avoiding conversation, trying to become invisible. William had found me on the balcony, hidden behind a potted fern. Hey, he'd said, you looked like you needed rescuing. I looked up at him, this gorgeous boy with the incredible smile, and my heart had immediately turned stupid. Hey, I'm okay. I'm not very good at parties. Me neither. He'd shrugged, that easy, effortless confidence that came with being a Bennett. But my mother says I have to be here. Representing the family, she says. She means to make more connections. He'd laughed, and it was warm, genuine, disarming. So here I am, representing the family. We talked for hours that night. About his passion for art history, which he'd inherited from his mother. About my love of architecture, inherited from my own. We discussed the design of the estate, debating the merits of modernist versus classical architecture until the moon rose high overhead, until the party inside had long since died down. My mother had come to find me, furious. Claire Foster, where have you been? William had stepped in front of me, shielding me from her fury. Mrs. Foster, I apologize. I kept your daughter on the balcony to discuss the house. I hope that's all right. My mother's demeanor had shifted instantly. She'd transformed from angry mother to doting socialite in the span of 2 seconds, all because William Bennett had spoken to her directly. Of course, William. I'm sure it was a fascinating conversation. Claire, say goodnight to William. It's time to go. I'd said goodnight. But I'd also been dreaming about that smile. We got married a year later, at a wedding so extravagant it made the city's newspapers. The reception was at the plaza, the flowers flown in from Holland, the dress from a designer so famous her name graced the covers of magazines. I'd walked down the aisle convinced I was the luckiest woman in the world. My mother had been proud. My father had been silent. My father had always been silent. He was a psychiatrist by trade, and he taught me, inadvertently, to read between the lines. So I understood what his silence meant. Are you happy? He'd asked me after the ceremony, in that quiet, measured voice he used when he was gauging something. I'd laughed, euphoric and breathless. I'm happier than I've ever been. And I believed it. I believed it when I was walking down that aisle in white. I believed it when William was saying his vows. I believed it even as Stephanie Reed was sitting in the second row, her face carefully composed but her hands clenched in her lap, refusing to applaud. I believed it all. Because I was the fool who had decided that love was enough. The wedding was beautiful. I'd realized that, looking back at the photographs my mother had sent, beautiful and empty. I'd been 24, still young enough to dream and old enough to believe in Prince Charmings. William had been 26, handsome in his bespoke tuxedo, a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. But I couldn't see it then. When you're in love, really in love, you don't see the cracks. You only see what you want to see. Are you happy, Claire? My mother's voice drifted in from the doorway. She was holding a crystal glass of champagne, swirling the liquid and watching me like I was a fragile piece of china that might shatter at any moment. I was sitting in the dressing room of the plaza, looking at my reflection in the mirror. I'm fine, Mother. She came into the room, all steel and determination despite her silk dress, and my mother didn't walk. She moved through life like she was stalking prey. That was the engineer in her, the woman who'd built a billion-dollar tech company from nothing. But engineering, I'd learned, was easier than people. Will made that comment during the toasts, she said. The one about you being the wife who never complains. It was a joke, Mother. You know your father and I. I know. I cut her off before she could finish. I know you think I'm making a mistake. Do you? She set the champagne glass down and crossed her arms. Because I don't think you know what you're doing. Of course I know what I'm doing. I met her eyes, daring her to contradict me. I'm marrying a man I've loved since I was a child. A man who came from a good family, who's successful, who is also rumored to be seeing someone else. The words hung in the air like smoke. My mother had a way of saying what everyone else was thinking. It was one of her least endearing qualities. At that moment, I hated her for it. She's in the family circle, Mother. I know she's in the family circle, Claire. I'm not stupid. I'm wondering why you're not more concerned. There was a pause. My father appeared in the doorway, his presence soft and his voice softer. Diana, she's made her choice. Her choice is going to ruin her. She's an adult, Diana. She's allowed to make mistakes. They were arguing about me like I wasn't in the room. I stood up, smoothing the silk of my wedding dress. I had to get out of there, away from them, away from the doubt that was already forming in my gut. This is my wedding day, I said. I'm not going to let anyone ruin it. My mother shook her head. I just want you to be careful, Claire. William Bennett is more than a handsome face. He's ambition in human form. And if you're not careful, his ambitions will leave you behind. It was the most truthful thing she'd ever said to me. And I didn't believe a word of it. Stephanie Reed was a fixture at every Bennett family function. She was a cousin of some kind, second cousin, third cousin, it didn't matter. She was always there, always present. She had a perfect smile and a sharp tongue and a way of looking at people like she was assessing them. I'd met her for the first time at a family dinner, and she treated me like I was her equal. So you're the one who stole William's heart, she'd said, her eyes glittering with something darker than amusement. I hope you know what you're doing. I love him, I'd replied. Stephanie had laughed, a high, tinkling sound that made me want to claw her eyes out. Oh, I'm sure you do. But loving him isn't enough, Claire. It's never been enough. I don't know what you mean by that. You will. Give it time. I hadn't understood then. I didn't understand for a long time. William had been busy, always busy, building his empire. He'd founded a tech company at 24 that grew into a billion-dollar enterprise. He was rarely home before midnight, rarely there for breakfast. But he was there for me. At first. Claire, are you okay? I remember a night in our first year of marriage, him returning from a business trip, tired but happy to see me, his hands warm on my shoulders. I'm fine. I was just waiting for you. You don't have to wait for me. I want to. He'd kissed my forehead, and for one perfect, eternal moment, I was the luckiest woman alive. Stephanie's here again, Mrs. Bennett. The cook's voice broke into my thoughts like a warning bell. I was pregnant with Lily, 6 months into a difficult pregnancy that had left me exhausted and overly emotional. Stephanie was in the drawing room, laughing like I was the punchline to a joke. Thank you, Margaret. I'll be right there. I didn't want to face her, but I'd learned over the months that running from Stephanie was a losing game. She would always find me. She would always corner me. She was like a bad penny, always turning up when you least expected her. And she had a way of making me feel small. You've been avoiding me, Claire. The words were casual, as if we were friends. I've been resting, Stephanie. Oh, of course. She smiled brightly. How's the pregnancy? Everything well? Everything is fine. That's good. That's really good. She toyed with her necklace, an emerald pendant that sparkled in the drawing room's ambient light. William must be so excited. He is. Fatherhood suits him, I think. He's always had a way with children. My stomach twisted. I didn't know why Stephanie was here. She'd arrived unannounced, as she often did, and her presence felt like a violation of my home. Would you like some tea? No, thank you. She waved her hand dismissively. I just came to tell you in person. Tell me what? Her smile widened. I'm engaged to someone. I blinked, caught off guard. That's wonderful. Who is he? His name is Thomas. He's in finance. Very boring, but William vouches for him, so he must be acceptable. She looked at me, that calculated look that I'd grown so familiar with. It's funny, isn't it? How William always gets what he wants. He told me to find a husband, and I found one. I don't know what you mean by that. Of course you don't. She laughed, and it was bitter. You don't need to know anything, Claire, because you have what everyone wants. The title, the estate, the name. Me? I'm just collateral damage. That conversation haunted me for months. I tried to dismiss it, to find reasons why Stephanie was lying, but the word stayed with me like a splinter. I started noticing things I'd missed before, the way William looked at Stephanie when he thought no one was watching, the way their conversations ended abruptly when I entered, the way she knew things about his schedule that I didn't. My husband was having an affair. I was so certain of it that I contacted a private investigator. It took 2 weeks to confirm. The report arrived in my inbox on a Thursday morning while I was sitting in my home office, looking at the accounts of a charity I was supposed to co-chair. I clicked on the email, scrolling past the blurbs, and there it was, photographs, receipts, email confirmations. William had been seeing Stephanie for the entire duration of our marriage. I put the phone down. I went to bed. I didn't cry, not immediately. I was too busy processing, too busy trying to understand why I hadn't seen it before. And then the rage came. I confronted him that night. I remember the way he looked at me, surprised but not guilty. Claire, you're being dramatic. I'm being dramatic? You've been sleeping with Stephanie Reed for years. I have proof, William. I have receipts, photographs, evidence of everything. He'd taken a step back, I'd noticed. His eyes darted around the room, looking for something to explain away the proof. That's not what you think it is. It's exactly what I think it is. Claire, He'd stopped, looked at me, and then I'd seen the shift. You can't prove anything. I'd held up a photograph, a hotel, a night we'd spent apart, an invoice with his name on it. I have proof. He laughed. You're right, Claire. I've been seeing her, but it's not serious. It's a distraction. It's a release. Not serious? You've been lying to me for years, William. And then he'd said something that had hurt more than anything. At least Stephanie doesn't ask questions. At least she doesn't demand to be part of my life. She knows what she is to me, Claire. You're the one who keeps forgetting your role. I moved out the following morning. Not to my mother's estate. I was too stubborn for that, but to a small apartment in Manhattan. I took Lily with me, ignoring William's demands that I return. You can't just leave. You can't disrupt Lily's life. I'm not disrupting her life, William. I'm protecting her. I'd stared at him across the kitchen table, wondering when the man I'd loved had become such a stranger. I've been patient with you, William. I've been patient for years. But I'm done. I'm done being the wife who turns a blind eye. I'm done being the woman who lets you walk all over her. The words had felt like liberation. And so had the divorce papers I'd filed the same day. But I wasn't ready for the fight that came after. The legal battle lasted 17 months. It was the most exhausting period of my life. Worse than the pregnancy, worse than the pain of discovering William's infidelities, worse than anything I'd ever experienced. I want full custody of Lily. I'd said it in the conference room, across the table from William's attorneys. No. She's my daughter, William. She's my daughter too. You've barely seen her. I'm her father. We'd argued, fought, negotiated. There'd been hearings and motions, accusations and counter-accusations. William's lawyer had tried to paint me as unstable, prone to hysteria. Mine had countered with evidence of his infidelity. We could go public, my attorney had said. We could make a case that William is an absent father, someone who prioritizes his career and his mistresses over the well-being of his child. No. I'd stopped the conversation cold. No matter how much I hated William, I wouldn't destroy his reputation. I wouldn't humiliate him in the media. Whatever people thought of him, I wouldn't let the world know that I'd been a fool. And I'd known, from the first moment, that I would lose the war. Stephanie didn't gloat, not openly. But she'd been a constant presence during the proceedings, sitting at William's side, whispering sweet nothings into his ear. The judge had granted William partial custody, alternating weekends and holidays. Lily would spend half her childhood in that home with that man. But I'd refused. I'm not letting Stephanie raise my daughter. You don't have to make her your enemy, Claire. My lawyer had counseled me to be careful, cautious. Stephanie is a manipulator, but William is your husband. He's not my husband, I'd shot back. He's Stephanie's. The affair wasn't new. I'd known about it for years, but the legal battle had brought all of the ugliness to light. We were fighting over assets, property, Lily's future. William was determined to squeeze every drop of compassion out of the situation, and Stephanie was determined to enjoy the spectacle. It was in the middle of this war that I found myself at another party, watching my soon-to-be ex-husband laugh with the woman he was leaving me for. I was pregnant with Lily. 6 months along, a swell in the middle of my body that should have brought joy, but instead felt like a burden. William was in the corner of the room, and next to him, Stephanie. Claire. I heard my name drifting from his lips. Claire Foster, the woman who still thinks she'll win. She won't win, Stephanie had said. She loves you too much. Does she? William had laughed. Does she know how pathetic she is? I remembered those words like a brand. They didn't hurt anymore. The pain had been cauterized by years of disappointment. But the memory had stayed with me, a reminder of exactly what kind of person William Bennett really was. Lily was born on an October morning, 2 months early. I remember the chaos of the hospital, the blur of doctors and nurses, the terror of delivering a baby who might not survive. I'd been in labor for 18 hours, and when they'd finally put her in my arms, I'd been convinced that I was going to lose her. She has a heart condition, my doctor said. A defect we didn't catch on the ultrasound. She'll need surgery sooner rather than later. William was present for the birth. For the surgeries, he didn't show. He was in Paris on a business trip, or perhaps with Stephanie. I didn't know. I learned a long time ago not to ask. I can't do this alone. I spoke the words to the wall of the nursery, in the dark of the night. Lily was in my arms, her tiny body struggling, and I felt like I was drowning. Claire, you don't have to do it alone. My mother had appeared in the doorway, her eyes full of pity. I called William, she'd said. He's coming home. Don't call him. I don't need him. You need help. I need someone who believes in me, not someone who abandoned me. She'd nodded, and I'd seen the tears in her eyes. I believe in you, Claire. I always have. The years rolled on. Lily grew stronger, smarter, more beautiful with every passing day. She had her father's eyes and my mouth, and a smile that could light up the room. She was the only good thing to come out of my marriage. I don't want to live like this anymore, Mom. Lily's voice drifted in from the doorway. I looked up from my desk. She was 7 years old, standing there with her arms crossed over her chest, looking more like a miniature adult than a child. Like what? Like I'm living with 2 families. What do you mean? I mean you and Daddy. I mean the time I spend here, and the time I spend with Stephanie. I know she's not my mother, but he treats her like she is, and I hate being around her. Lily, don't tell me everything's fine. I know it's not. Stephanie moved into the Bennett estate after the divorce was finalized. William had made sure of that. It was the ultimate humiliation, my replacement living in the house I'd once called home, raising my child part-time. And I'd let it happen. Because I was weak. Because I thought I could still win William's love. Because I was a fool. But I wasn't the same woman I'd been at 24. I'd been transformed by years of pain, years of watching William and Stephanie together, years of being the wife who had to pretend. The night I walked out of the Ivy, I'd already filed the papers. But the fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. William, you need to face the facts. Your wife is a doormat. I looked up from my phone. I'd been sitting in the living room of the Bennett house, waiting to pick up Lily. Stephanie was holding a glass of champagne, her feet propped up on the coffee table. She's not my wife anymore, Steph. Oh, she is. Divorce is just paperwork. She's still in love with you. She'll never let you go. Not now. William had walked into the room, his face grim. Listen to me. I know you think Claire's changed, but she hasn't. She's still the same woman, so desperate for affection that she'll take anything, any amount of humiliation. Stephanie, enough. It's true, and you know it. Claire's a good person, William had said. Good is code for pathetic. I have connections. My brother-in-law works for a firm that could prove Claire was negligent. Don't threaten me, Stephanie. I'm not threatening you. I'm just telling you that the truth will come out eventually. I stood up. William's head snapped in my direction. Claire. I heard everything. You're not supposed to be here. Yes, I know. I'm not supposed to be anywhere. I walked out of the Bennett estate for the last time, holding Lily's hand. The day had barely begun, and already it was over. You're not going to make this easy, are you? William's voice broke through my thoughts. I was in the lobby of my attorney's office, finalizing the last of the divorce paperwork. Easy? William, you had an affair with my cousin. You made a bet on our marriage, and you told everyone I was pathetic. I apologize. Apologizing doesn't change what you did. The words hung between us, too heavy to be resolved by anything. After the settlement, I bought a small house on the outskirts of the city. It wasn't much, a fixer-upper in a neighborhood no one wanted to move into, but it was mine. I rented the front room to a tenant, a young man named Thomas who was saving up for a master's degree in architecture. He was quiet, industrious, and never asked questions. His rent paid for Lily's school and for the renovations. I was rebuilding, and I didn't need anyone's pity to do it. The day Lily turned 10, William broke the news. Stephanie and I are getting married, Claire. He'd said it over the phone, as casual as if he were discussing the weather. I know. What do you mean, you know? You told me when you moved in with her, William. I just didn't care enough to stop you. There was a pause. Why? Because I don't love you anymore, William. It was the first time I'd said it out loud, and the words felt like a chainsaw through cement. You don't love me? Don't make me say it twice, William. I don't love you. I haven't loved you for years. Stephanie had a son. His name was Thomas, and he was the reason Lily had started asking questions. Is Thomas actually my brother? What? My teacher said something. She said Stephanie married William because she was pregnant with Thomas. I don't know, Lily. You don't know? I don't know, Lily. I'm sorry. That's not something I'm comfortable talking about. Maybe I should ask her. Don't, I said. Don't ask anything of her. 2 months after that conversation, my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. She died within the year. I was in her hospital room when she took her last breath, surrounded by machines that were failing, flowers that were wilting, family members who had no idea how to say goodbye. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm sorry I didn't help you more." "Mom, you did help me." "I didn't protect you. That was my job." "You did protect me. You taught me how to survive." Her hand squeezed mine, and then she was gone. The week after my mother's death, William called. "Claire, I need to ask you something." "Ask it." "Who gets the house?" "The house? You get the house. I don't want it." "You don't want it?" "William, my mother died. I don't care about the house. I care about people. And I don't care about you. You're going to regret this, Claire." William's voice rang in my ears as I walked away from the Bennett estate for the last time. "No, William. I'm not going to regret anything." "Claire." "Goodbye, William." Lily was 14 when she asked me, "Why did you stay with him for so long?" "Because I thought that if I stayed, I could change him." "Did it work?" "No." "Would you do it again?" "Not for the world." She hugged me, and for the first time in years, I felt like I had finally found peace. The day of William and Stephanie's wedding, I was in a cafe, watching the morning news. I should have been working. Instead, I was a hostage to the moment. Stephanie's dress was white, her smile was triumphant. William was standing next to her in a tuxedo, looking like a man trapped in amber. "You're not going?" My friend Ellen was sitting across from me, nursing a cup of coffee. I was invited. So, I didn't RSVP. I don't think I could stand to watch them pretending to be happy. "Could you stand to walk away?" "Not from the person I used to be." The last thing I said to William was simple. "Be happy, William. I hope Stephanie makes you happy." It was the most honest thing I'd ever said to him. And he looked at me in confusion, as if he had no idea who I'd become. "I didn't want this." "Yes, you did," I said. "You wanted it for years, but you never got the chance to show it." I moved to Los Angeles 6 months after the divorce. I needed a new city, a new start, and California was the closest I could get to escape. "You're leaving? But what about Lily?" Stephanie had stood in my doorway, disbelief on her face. "What about your job? Your life?" "Los Angeles has opportunities," I said, "and Lily can visit me during the summer. It'll be good for her." "Claire, you don't have to run away." "Yes, I do, because I don't want to be the person who's still in love with William." Los Angeles had a different rhythm. It was a city of escape, full of people who were starting over. I bought a small house in the hills, furnished it with modern furniture, and began a new career as a design consultant. It was good for me. And it was good for Lily. "You're happy, aren't you?" she asked during a summer visit. "Yes, I'm happy." "Good, because I don't want you to be sad." "I'm not sad, Lily. I'm free." The last time I saw William was at a hotel, years later. He was old, tired, gray at the temples. His eyes, once bright with ambition, were hollow. "Claire." "William, I want to talk to you. I don't have anything to say to you. I need to say something, for closure." "Closure? William, I never needed closure from you. I already moved on." "But I need to tell you." "Tell me what?" "I'm sorry," he said it softly, sincerely. "For the affair, for the bet, for everything." "Why are you apologizing?" "Because I've got nothing left. Lily's getting married." William had called me on a Tuesday morning, sounding older, softer, like he'd been trying to say something for a long time. "I know, William. She's my daughter. I wanted to do something for her. I wanted to be part of it." "You can be part of it, but you have to let her live her own life." "I don't know how." "Neither do I." Lily and Ethan's wedding was in August. I didn't cry during the ceremony. I didn't cry when she said, "I do." I didn't cry when she looked at me like I was the world. Because I had survived something terrible and come out the other side. The front door of my house slammed shut. Lily's footsteps echoed in the hallway. "Mom?" I was in the living room, writing a letter to my mother. The letter I'd never send, the one I wrote every week to remind myself of the things I was grateful for. "Mom, are you okay?" "I'm fine, Lily. I was just looking at something." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." She sat down next to me, and I looked at her. My daughter, the survivor of a broken home, the future I hadn't expected. "I'm glad you were my mother," she said. I smiled. "I'm glad you were my daughter." The end. The end of the story, but not the end of the truth. Because the truth was bigger than one woman's survival. The truth was that we all survived. And I was free. They didn't know what I already knew. I had been planning my escape for 3 years, and the moment I finally walked out of that club and into the night, the moment I drove away from the chaos and the drama and the years of pretending, that was the moment I stopped being the wife who let herself be destroyed. That was the moment I started living. And I never looked back. Because I didn't have to. I had Lily. I had my freedom. And I had the knowledge that I had finally won. But that's not the end of everything. Because the truth about William Bennett was larger than I'd known. The truth about Stephanie Reed, the truth about my mother, the truth about the money my father had hidden in Lily's trust fund, those were the secrets that were about to change everything. The story of my life had a beginning, a middle, and an end. But I hadn't reached the end yet. I was still writing the middle chapters. The chapters where I found out exactly what William Bennett had been hiding. The chapters where I discovered that Stephanie Reed had been playing a much longer game. The chapters where everything I thought I knew about my marriage turned out to be a lie. And the chapters where I finally, conclusively, permanently beat them at their own game. But that's a story for another night. A story that begins with a single question. What do you do when you realize that everything you've been taught about love and family and betrayal was a lie? I found the answer. And it began with a single step, the step I took when I left William Bennett standing in that club, looking exactly like the man I'd once believed would love me forever. He didn't love me then. He would never love me. But I didn't need his love anymore. I had my freedom, my daughter, and my revenge. All three of them were sweeter than I'd ever imagined. I thought leaving William was the end of a story. I was wrong. The real story started 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized, when I received a letter from a law firm I'd never heard of. IT arrived on a Tuesday morning, plain envelope, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a phone number. Mrs. Foster Bennett, I represent the estate of your late father-in-law. There are matters of significant importance that require your presence. Please call this number at your earliest convenience. My father-in-law, Richard Bennett, had died 2 years before. We'd never been close. He was a cold, distant man who treated me with polite indifference throughout my marriage. I hadn't spoken to him since the divorce proceedings. I almost threw the letter away. But something made me hesitate. Something about the phrase, matters of significant importance, nagged at me. William's father had been the patriarch of the Bennett family, the one who controlled the trusts, the properties, the legacy. If he'd left something for me, it meant something. I called the number. Mrs. Foster Bennett, thank you for returning my call. My name is Arthur Collins. I was Richard Bennett's personal attorney. He instructed me to contact you after his death, but only at a specific time. A specific time? Yes. He wanted you to have 6 months after your divorce was finalized. He said you'd need time to heal. I felt a chill run down my spine. He knew about the divorce? Everyone knew about the divorce, Mrs. Foster Bennett, but he didn't want to interfere. He said it was your decision, and he respected it. Respected it? He never even spoke to me about it. Mr. Bennett was not an expressive man, but he cared about you. He cared about Lily too, and he wanted to make sure you were protected. Protected from what? From his son. The meeting was set for 2 weeks later at a private office in Manhattan. I took the train from Los Angeles, leaving Lily with my sister. I didn't tell William the first was coming. I didn't tell anyone. Arthur Collins was an older man with silver hair and a gentle demeanor. He looked like someone who'd spent his life keeping secrets, and the weight of those secrets showed in the lines around his eyes. Please sit down. I sat across from him, my hands folded in my lap. Mrs. Foster Bennett, I'm going to be direct with you. Richard Bennett left a letter for you, along with a substantial trust fund for Lily. But he also asked me to tell you something he believed you deserved to know. What is it? He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a manila folder. Richard Bennett was not a good father. He knew that he was consumed by his own ambition, and he neglected William terribly, but he loved William in his own way. And when William made certain choices that hurt you, Richard understood why. Choices? You mean the affair? Mr. Collins nodded slowly. The affair was complicated. Stephanie Reed was not just a mistress. She was a tool William used intentionally. I felt my heart stop. What do you mean, a tool? William knew about the circumstances of your parents' death. He knew that his father's negligence played a role, and he couldn't bear the guilt. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. My parents' death? What does it have to do with anything? Arthur Collins hesitated, and then he told me everything. 25 years ago, my parents had been killed in a car accident. I'd been told it was a tragic accident. A driver lost control, hit their car head-on. But the truth was messier. Richard Bennett and my father had been close friends. They'd also been business rivals, and on the night of the accident, they'd been driving back from a meeting together, Richard at the wheel. He'd had a heart attack at the wheel, a minor one, but enough to make him lose control. The car swerved into oncoming traffic, and my parents died instantly. Richard survived. He'd covered it up, paid off investigators, made it look like a mechanical failure. He'd never told anyone, not his wife, not his son, not even my mother. But William had found out. He was 24, just out of college, and he'd stumbled across confidential documents in his father's study. He'd confronted Richard, and Richard had confessed. Your mother died because of my father. William had told me once, years ago, in a moment of weakness. I dismissed it as nonsense, but it was true. William had been consumed by guilt. He believed that by marrying me, he was somehow making amends, but the guilt ate at him, and he'd done the only thing he could think of. He'd driven me away. He'd made himself unbearable, cruel, indifferent. He'd let Stephanie Reed into his life, not because he loved her, but because she was willing to play the part of a villain. He wanted you to hate him, Mr. Collins said. He wanted you to leave him. He thought that was the only way to protect you from the Bennett family's darkness. But why not tell me? Why not let me decide? Because he was ashamed, and because he didn't think you could forgive him. I sat there in that office listening to the whole story, and I felt something inside me crack. Not because I was angry. I'd been angry for years. Not because I was sad. I'd cried enough tears to fill an ocean. But because I realized in that moment that the man I'd loved and hated was not the man I'd thought. William had been trying to save me. He'd done it badly. Terribly. He'd hurt me more than anyone else in my life. But his intentions, twisted, misguided, and selfish as they were, had been rooted in something else entirely. Does he know you're telling me this? William doesn't know anything. I'm doing this because Richard Bennett asked me to. He wanted you to have the truth, even if it was painful. He said you deserved to make your own choice. I stared at the folder. There's something else, Mrs. Foster Bennett. Something about Stephanie Reed. Of course there is. Mr. Collins slid a DNA report across the table. Thomas Reed is not William's son. He's the son of Stephanie's first husband, a man who died before William and Stephanie ever became involved. William knew this. He agreed to claim paternity because Stephanie threatened to go public with a story about your parents' death. She blackmailed him? Essentially, yes. She's been controlling him for years. The affair, the marriage, it was all leverage. She wanted access to Bennett money, Bennett power. And she got it. I looked at the report. Thomas Reed, 13 years old, born 3 years into my marriage, was listed as the biological son of one Andrew Reed, deceased. She's been lying to everyone, I said. Everyone except William. He knew. He paid her to keep quiet. He gave her a house, an allowance, a role in his life, all to prevent her from destroying you. I don't remember leaving the office. I don't remember walking to the train station or calling my sister or buying a cup of coffee. I remember sitting in a park, staring at nothing, trying to process the fact that my entire understanding of my marriage had been wrong. William had been protecting me. He'd been protecting me from the truth about my parents, from Stephanie's schemes, from the Bennett family's legacy of secrets and lies. And he'd done it by destroying himself. I thought about the nights he'd come home late, the coldness in his eyes, the way he'd flinched when I tried to touch him. I thought about the affair, the rumors, the humiliation. All of it had been a performance. But that didn't excuse it. Understanding someone's reasons doesn't erase their actions. William had hurt me deeply and deliberately. He'd lied to me for years. He'd made me believe I was unloved, unwanted, worthless. And I had believed it. I'd spent years of my life believing that I wasn't enough. Now I knew it was a lie. But knowing that didn't undo the damage. I called William. He answered on the first ring, like he'd been waiting for my call. Claire, I know everything, William. There was a long silence on his end. I know about my parents' death. I know about Richard's cover-up. I know about Stephanie's blackmail. I know about Thomas's paternity. Claire, don't tell me you're sorry. I don't want to hear that. Then what do you want? I want to understand. Understand what? Understand why you thought this was the right thing. Why you believed that destroying me was better than telling me the truth. He exhaled slowly. Because I was a coward, Claire, I was too afraid to face what my family had done. I was too afraid to face what I'd done by marrying you under false pretenses. I thought if I pushed you away, you'd be safe. I thought if you hated me, you'd move on, find someone better, someone who deserved you. You decided what I deserve. Yes. Without asking me, yes. It wasn't your choice, William. It was never your choice. I know that now. I hung up the phone. For the first time in years, I didn't feel angry. I felt tired, bone tired, down to my soul. The truth had set me free, but it had also burdened me with a new weight, the weight of understanding. William had been broken by his family. He'd been manipulated, blackmailed, and consumed by guilt. He'd made terrible decisions, and those decisions had hurt me. But he wasn't the villain I'd made him out to be. He was just a man who'd lost his way. And I was a woman who'd finally found hers. I didn't go back to William. That wasn't the point of the truth. The point was that I had a choice now, a real choice. I could stay angry, or I could let go. I could hold on to the past, or I could embrace the future. I chose the future. But Stephanie Reed didn't get the same grace. I'd thought about her differently after the meeting. She'd been William's accomplice, his co-conspirator in the lie, but she'd also been his puppet master. She'd been the one who'd orchestrated the affair, the blackmail, the manipulation. She'd used William's guilt as leverage, and she'd used my pain as entertainment. That wasn't something I could forgive. I called my attorney. I need to know everything about Stephanie Reed's finances. There's not much to know, Claire. She's been living on William's money. She's been blackmailing him. I need proof. Proof of what? Proof that she's been extorting money from the Bennett estate under threat of exposure. I need to find out if she's broken any laws. It took 2 weeks, but we found it. Stephanie had been receiving regular payments from the Bennett family trust, not because she was entitled to them, but because she threatened to reveal the truth about Richard Bennett's involvement in my parents' death. Those payments were illegal. They constituted blackmail and extortion. I had her arrested on a Monday. The media had a field day. Stephanie Reed arrested for extortion ran the headlines. Bennett family scandal, blackmail, and betrayal. William issued a statement, distancing himself from Stephanie's actions. He claimed he'd been a victim of her manipulation, which was true, in part. But I didn't care about his redemption. I cared about my daughter. Lily was 12 now, old enough to understand what was happening. Mom, is it true that Stephanie was blackmailing Dad? I sat her down in the living room of our new apartment. Yes, it's true. And Dad knew she was lying about Thomas? Yes. Then why didn't he tell anyone? Because he was protecting me, Lily. He was trying to protect me from a truth that would have hurt me. He did it badly, and he hurt me in other ways, but his intentions were complicated. Lily looked at me, her eyes full of confusion and sadness. Do you still love him? I thought about it for a long moment. No, I said. I don't love him, but I don't hate him anymore either. I've moved past that. She nodded slowly, absorbing the information. What about Stephanie? Stephanie made her own choices. She's going to have to live with the consequences. Stephanie's trial was a public spectacle. She sat in the defendant's chair, her perfect hair disheveled, her designer clothes replaced by a prison jumpsuit. She looked like a woman who'd lost everything, and she had. The prosecution laid out the evidence, the payments, the threats, the deception. They called William to the stand, and he testified against her. She threatened to destroy Claire's life if I didn't do what she asked, he said. She told me she'd go to the press, expose the story about the car accident. She said Claire wouldn't survive it. Did you believe her? I believed she'd try. She was capable of anything. The jury convicted her on all counts. Stephanie was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt empty. I'd spent so long hating her, dreaming of her downfall. But when it came, it didn't bring me peace. It just brought silence. The silence of a finished chapter. William called me after the trial. "Claire, I need to see you." "What for?" "Because I need to tell you something in person. Something I should have told you a long time ago." "William, please, just 1 hour. I won't ask for anything else." I agreed. We met at a cafe in Manhattan. Neutral territory, public, safe. He looked older than I remembered, thinner, worn down by years of carrying secrets. "I'm leaving New York," he said. "I'm moving to London. There's a position there, a new start." "That sounds good for you." "It's what I need." He paused. "But I didn't ask you here to tell you that." "Then why?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. He opened it to reveal a ring, my mother's engagement ring, the one I thought was lost. "I found this in Stephanie's things," he said. "She'd stolen it during one of her visits. I should have noticed. I should have been paying attention." I took the ring, turning it over in my fingers. It was beautiful, simple gold band, a small diamond at the center. My mother had worn it every day of her life. "Thank you," I said. "Claire, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I hurt you more than anyone ever should. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. Not because I'm trying to win you back, I'm not. I've accepted that I lost you, but I want you to know that you were never the problem, that I was." I looked at the ring, then at William. "I know, William. And I'm trying to become someone better. Someone Lily can be proud of." "She's already proud of you." "She is? She's a good kid. She sees the best in everyone, including you." He smiled faintly. I left the cafe with the ring in my pocket. I didn't look back. But I knew, in that moment, that I had finally let go. Not of William. I'd done that years ago. But of the anger, the bitterness, the need to see him suffer. I didn't need that anymore. I had Lily. I had my freedom. I had my mother's ring back. I had everything I needed. 6 months later, I moved to the south of France. It was a small town on the coast, quiet and beautiful. Lily came with me, and we started a new life together. I opened a small art gallery, bought a house with a view of the sea, and spent my days painting and reading and walking along the shore. I didn't think about William. I didn't think about Stephanie. I thought about myself. And for the first time in 20 years, I was genuinely happy. "I love you, Mom." Lily said it one evening, watching the sunset from our balcony. "I love you too, Lily. Do you ever regret staying with Dad for so long?" "No," I said, "because if I hadn't, I wouldn't have you." She hugged me, and I felt the warmth of her body against mine, the weight of her love. I had survived something terrible. I had come out the other side, and I was stronger than I'd ever been. But the best part? I never needed William to be happy. I never needed Stephanie to be punished. I just needed to be free. And now I was. They didn't know what I already knew. That the truth, even when it's ugly, even when it's painful, is always better than a lie. That love, real love, doesn't control or manipulate or destroy. That the people who try to bring you down always end up hurting themselves. And that the most powerful thing in the world is walking away from a situation that's been designed to make you small. I walked away. I walked toward the sun. And I never looked back. I thought I'd heard the last of the Bennett family secrets. I was wrong. The letter arrived on a Thursday, 3 months after I'd settled into my new life in the south of France. It was from Arthur Collins again, the same attorney who'd revealed the truth about my parents' death. This time, the envelope was thicker. "Mrs. Foster Bennett, I must request your presence in New York at your earliest convenience. There are matters pertaining to the Bennett estate that require your immediate attention. I assure you, this is of significant importance." I almost ignored it. I'd already had enough of the Bennett family to last a lifetime, but something about the phrase Bennett estate made me pause. Richard Bennett had been dead for years. His estate should have been settled long ago. Unless there was something he'd hidden. Something he'd left for me. I flew to New York alone. Lily was with her father. William had been making an effort to rebuild his relationship with her, and I'd agreed to shared custody during school breaks. IT was strange, trusting him again. But I'd learned that people could change, and William was trying. Arthur Collins met me at the same office as before. This time, he looked more solemn. "Mrs. Foster Bennett, I have some news that may be difficult to hear, but I believe you're ready for it. More secrets. Not exactly secrets, more like unfinished business." He slid a document across the table. It was a will, Richard Bennett's last will and testament, dated 6 months before his death. "I was instructed not to read this to you until after your divorce was finalized," Arthur said. "Richard Bennett wanted you to have a choice. He wanted you to decide whether you wanted to be part of the family or not. I chose not to be part of it. I divorced William. I understand, but Richard didn't leave this for William. He left it for you." I opened the document, and my heart stopped. Richard Bennett had left me 40% of the Bennett family trust. Not William, not Stephanie, not any of his other relatives. Me. 40%. I looked up at Arthur. That's tens of millions of dollars. Actually, it's closer to 200 million, depending on the current valuation of the assets. Richard wanted to make sure you were taken care of. He felt responsible for the tragedy that befell your parents. He wanted to make amends. But why now? Why not tell me before the divorce? Because he wanted you to make your own decision. He didn't want you to feel pressured to stay with William for the money. He wanted you to leave if that was what you needed to do. But he also wanted you to know that you had a safety net. I felt tears pricking at my eyes, not tears of joy, not entirely. They were tears of confusion, of anger, of grief. This man, who'd been responsible for my parents' death, had tried to make things right. And he'd done it in the only way he knew how, with money. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. You just have to decide whether to accept it. There's no catch. There's one condition. Arthur paused. Lily must be the sole beneficiary of the trust after your death. Richard wanted to ensure that his granddaughter would never have to worry about money. I nodded slowly. That's not a condition. That's what I'd want anyway. Then it's yours. I walked out of that office with a check for $5 million, the first installment of the inheritance. The rest would be transferred over the next 6 months. I was a wealthy woman, wealthier than I'd ever been, even during my marriage to William. But the money didn't matter as much as the freedom. The freedom to choose my own life. I didn't tell William about the inheritance. Not because I was hiding it from him, but because I didn't want him to think I was staying with him for the money. Our relationship was already complicated enough. But he found out anyway. Claire, I need to talk to you. He called me 2 weeks later, his voice strained. About what? About the trust. My father's trust. I just found out he left you 40%. Yes, he did. And you didn't think to tell me? I didn't think it was any of your business. Claire, that trust was supposed to go to me. I was his son. Then why didn't he leave it to you? There was a long silence on his end. Because he didn't trust me, William finally said. He never trusted me. He thought I'd squander it. He thought I was too much like him. Are you? I don't know. Maybe. But that's not the point. The point is that you have control over the family fortune now. You have control over everything. And what do you want me to do with it? I want you to use it wisely. I want you to make sure Lily is taken care of. And I want you to know that I don't resent you for it. That's surprisingly mature of you, William. I've had a lot of time to think. The money changed things. Not in the way I expected. I didn't buy yachts or private islands. I didn't quit my art gallery or move to a bigger house. But I started to feel powerful in a way I never had before. I had options. I could invest in projects I cared about. I could help people who needed it. I could build something lasting, something that mattered. And I could finally stop worrying about the future. Stephanie Reed heard about the inheritance from prison. She wrote me a letter, a long, rambling, bitter letter accusing me of stealing from the Bennett family, of manipulating Richard into changing his will, of destroying her life. I didn't respond. I burned the letter and went on with my day. But the letter made me think. Stephanie had been so consumed by greed, so obsessed with the Bennett money, that she'd made herself a villain in her own story. She'd manipulated William, extorted him, threatened him, all for a share of a fortune that was never meant to be hers. And in the end, she'd lost everything. I didn't feel sorry for her. But I did feel sorry for her son, Thomas. Thomas Reed was 12 years old, the same age as Lily. He'd been caught in the middle of this mess. Just like Lily, he'd grown up believing William was his father, believing he was part of the Bennett family. And now he knew the truth, that he was the son of a dead man and a convicted extortionist. William had cut off all contact with Stephanie, but he'd continued to support Thomas. He'd set up a trust for him, paid for his schooling, made sure he had everything he needed. I didn't begrudge him that. Thomas was innocent in all of this. And so was Lily. I thought about my own childhood. Growing up without my parents, raised by a mother who's more focused on her career than on me, I'd been lonely, desperate for affection. That loneliness had made me vulnerable to William's charms, easy to manipulate, willing to accept less than I deserved. I didn't want that for Lily. I wanted her to be strong, independent, unafraid to stand on her own. And I was starting to believe that she could be. Do you think Dad still loves you? Lily asked the question on a warm summer evening, sitting on the balcony of my French villa. I looked at her, surprised by the directness of the question. I don't know, Lily. I don't think it matters. It matters to me. Why? Because if he still loves you, then maybe he didn't mean to hurt you. Maybe he was just confused. Lily, love doesn't excuse hurt. Your father made choices that damaged our family. He has to live with the consequences of those choices. But I've moved on. I'm not angry with him anymore. Then what are you? I'm at peace. She nodded slowly, and I could see the gears turning in her head. I think I'm at peace too, she said. The inheritance wasn't the last secret. Arthur Collins called me again a month later. Mrs. Foster Bennett, there's something else. Something Richard Bennett discovered shortly before his death. He wanted me to tell you only if you accepted the inheritance. What is it? Your mother's company, the tech firm she founded, has been managed by a board of directors since her death. Richard was one of the original investors. He bought a controlling stake years ago, and he's been holding it in trust for you. Controlling stake? The company is worth approximately $800 million, Mrs. Foster Bennett. And it's yours. I nearly dropped the phone. My mother's company? I thought it was sold years ago. It was never sold. IT was restructured. Richard bought out the other shareholders and placed the shares in a blind trust. He intended to give them to you when you turned 35. But then the accident happened, and he never had the chance. So, it's been sitting there for years? It's been growing. The company is more valuable now than it was then. I didn't know what to say. My mother had built an empire, and I'd never known. I'd been so focused on my own pain, on my marriage, on surviving, that I'd never thought to investigate her legacy. I need to see the paperwork. It's already on its way. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, accountants, and board meetings. I learned that my mother's company, a tech firm specializing in cybersecurity, had been a quiet giant in the industry. She'd built it from nothing, and it had thrived under the leadership of people she'd trusted. And now it was mine. I didn't take over the day-to-day operations. I wasn't interested in running a corporation. But I appointed a new CEO, someone I trusted, and I started to take an active role in the strategic decisions. It felt like reclaiming a piece of my heritage. I started to understand something then. My mother had been a powerful woman. She'd been ambitious, driven, and determined, but she'd also been afraid of losing everything, afraid of being seen as weak. That fear had made her protective of me, but it had also made her distant. She'd loved me in her own way. She just hadn't known how to show it. And now, I was carrying on her legacy. The board meeting was in London. I flew there on my private jet, yes, I had one now, and sat in the conference room, surrounded by executives in tailored suits. Ms. Foster, we're pleased to welcome you as the new majority shareholder. The company has been performing well, and we believe there's significant growth potential in the next 5 years. I listened to the presentations, asked questions, made suggestions, and I felt a surge of pride that I hadn't felt in years. This was my mother's work, her vision, her legacy, and now it was mine. William heard about the company. He called me, his voice filled with a strange mixture of awe and resignation. Claire, I heard about your mother's company. You're the majority shareholder now. Yes. You're worth more than me. I don't think it's a competition, William. It's not. It's just I never realized you had that kind of power. I didn't either, until now. I'm glad for you, Claire. Truly, you deserve it. Thank you, William. You know, I used to think you were weak. I used to think you'd never survive without me. But I was wrong. You were always the strongest person I knew. I just couldn't see it. Sometimes we can't see what's right in front of us. Claire, he paused. I want to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. What is it? Would you ever consider coming back? Not as my wife, I know that ship has sailed, but as my friend, as Lily's mother, I don't want to lose you entirely. I thought about it. No, William, I don't think I can be your friend. Not yet. Maybe someday. But right now, I need to focus on myself, on Lily, on my mother's legacy. I've spent too many years tied to you and your family secrets. I need to be free. I understand. Thank you for understanding. I hung up the phone and looked out the window of my London penthouse. The city sprawled below me, a mass of lights and energy. I was free. Truly, completely, irrevocably free. And I had everything I'd ever wanted, not because of William, not because of the Bennett fortune, but because I'd finally learned to believe in myself. The inheritance changed me. Not because of the money, although that was nice, but because it gave me options. It gave me agency. It gave me the power to decide my own future. I could travel. I could invest. I could start new projects, meet new people, build new relationships. I could be whoever I wanted to be. And that was the most valuable thing of all. Lily came to visit me in London. We spent a week together, exploring the city, shopping, eating at fancy restaurants. Do you miss Dad? She asked. Not really. Do you miss anyone? I miss your grandmother. I miss the person I used to be, but I'm building a new person now. Someone I like better. That's good, Mom. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you too. The last thing I did with the inheritance was set up a foundation. It was dedicated to helping children of broken families, kids like Lily, kids like me. We provided counseling, scholarships, mentoring programs. It was my way of giving back. And it was my way of making sure that the pain I'd experienced wouldn't be repeated. A year passed. Then, too, I traveled to Paris, to Rome, to Tokyo. I painted, wrote, read. I fell in love with a man named Michael, a kind, gentle artist who didn't care about my money or my connections. He loved me for me, and I let myself be loved. Your mother would have liked him. Lily said it on my wedding day, standing next to me in the small chapel in Provence. I think she would have too. Are you happy? Yes, Lily, I'm happy. Good, because you deserve it. I never spoke to William again. Not out of anger, but out of acceptance. We had both moved on. We had both built new lives. And that was okay. Stephanie was released from prison after 4 years. She moved to a small town in the Midwest, far from the Bennett family's orbit. I heard she'd found a job as a cashier, living a quiet, anonymous life. I didn't hate her anymore. I just didn't care. The foundation grew. It became one of the largest charitable organizations in Europe, supporting thousands of families every year. I turned my pain into something meaningful. And that, more than anything, was my greatest victory. They didn't know what I already knew. I spoke the words to myself, sitting on the balcony of my villa, watching the sun set over the Mediterranean. I knew that I was stronger than they thought. I knew that I could survive anything. I knew that the truth, no matter how painful, would set me free. And it did. The end of the story wasn't revenge. It was liberation. I hadn't destroyed William. I hadn't destroyed Stephanie. They'd done that to themselves. But I had built something new, something beautiful, something that would last long after I was gone. And that, in the end, was the sweetest revenge of all.